welcome. Pull your chair a little closer to the fire. The world outside is incredibly noisy right now. But in here, I want you to hear something that changes, well, absolutely everything. Tonight, I want to pass down an ancient and profoundly protected story to you. It's the story of a single word, a word that's been preserved through centuries, yet somehow deeply misunderstood. You know, as a teacher, there are certain truths you wait to hand over until the listener is truly ready to bear their weight. And this is definitely one of those truths. We aren't just looking at some simple translation today. We're uncovering a literal lifeline. So let's dive right into this story. And we're going to start in the darkest hours of a very, very old night.
It's a few hours past midnight on a hillside of old olive trees. I want you to really imagine the chill in that night air, you know? The heavy, earthy scent of crushed olives lingering all around. The only men awake near this garden, a place called Gethsemane, are the ones actively coming to make an arrest. The disciples, Peter, James, and John, they're heavy with wine and grief, just kind of sliding in and out of sleep. And somewhere in that drifting through the dark, Peter hears his teacher, Jesus, just a stone's throw away. The sheer terror of this moment is absolute. Jesus has his face pressed right into the cold dirt, and in total crushing agony, he speaks a single word.
Decades later, a man named Mark actually wrote down exactly what Peter remembered hearing. And when Mark reaches this specific night in his narrative, he does something completely rare. He just stops translating. Mark totally could have written the Greek equivalent, but he knew, deep down, that something essential would be lost in translation. He wanted his readers, people who had literally never spoken a single syllable of Aramaic, to feel the exact phonetic breath of a son crying out in the dark. So he sets down the actual word that left Jesus' mouth, preserving it sound by sound. Abba.
The myth of daddy. You've probably been told a rather cozy tale about what this ancient word means. Maybe you heard it in a Sunday sermon or read it in a popular paperback. For a long time, we've been told that this word is just a toddler's babble. You know, the image of a little child crawling up into their father's lap.
So, where did that come from? Well, back in the mid-20th century, a devout German scholar named Joachim Jeremias noticed just how intimately Jesus prayed. Reaching for a way to express that startling closeness to Western audiences, he compared it to a child's first babbling word, daddy, rather than the more grown-up word of honor, father. And honestly, it was a warm, incredibly preachable idea, so it spread like wildfire. But here's the thing. The actual historical truth, which, by the way, Jeremias himself later admitted, is far heavier and honestly far more beautiful than a child's baby talk.
A word for grown sons. To find the real meaning here, we actually have to turn the pages of history back to the everyday Aramaic language of Galilee. We need to go back to the language of Jesus' own kitchen table to find the true, structural roots of this word.
It all starts with a very small syllable, ev. This is just the plain Aramaic word for father. It's this ancient building block hiding right in plain sight inside names you probably already know, like Abraham, meaning father of a multitude, or Absalom, my father is peace. That root, av, anchors those names with profound, enduring authority. It's not childish affection. In Scripture, this base word for father is never just simple grammar. It absolutely always carries the heavy weight of a deep wound or a profound blessing.
But then, Aramaic grammar does something really special to that little word, ah. It shifts it into what linguists call the emphatic state, and it becomes Abba. This takes a plain, everyday word and points it like an arrow. It literally changes it from a father to the father, this one right here. It aims the word directly at a man's face, completely transforming it from a general term into a highly targeted, intensely reverent address.
And historical Jewish writings prove exactly who used this word. It wasn't toddlers. It was spoken by grown sons and daughters to their fathers. It was used by devoted students. And brilliantly, it became a title of immense respect given to old, weathered man of honor, like the legendary rainmaker and respected elder Abba Hilkiah. Nobody was running around calling that powerful, weathered old man daddy. They called him Abba because it was a word of profound respect and mature devotion.
Now, in that ancient world, father was a rare, corporate kind of prayer for the whole nation. But Jesus, he lived inside that word personally. And then he did something absolutely staggering. You have to understand what a radical shift this was. He took the highly protected, holy title of an entire nation, and he daringly placed it right onto the unpolished tongues of ordinary, everyday fishermen and tax collectors. He told them, when you pray, say, Father. In doing that, he welded unimaginable nearness together with absolute holy reverence.
The Roman adoption. So, how does that ancient holy word reach us today?
Well, we find the answer in the letters of the Apostle Paul, who reveals exactly how this sacred family word legally crosses the boundary out of the first century and directly into our own lives.
In his letter to the Romans, Paul writes that we have received a spirit by whom we cry, Abba, Father. But the Greek verb Paul pairs with Abba is krazo. Listen, this is not a soft nursery whisper. Think of the absolute most desperate moment of your life. Krazo means to cry out. It is the scream of a drowning man. It's a desperate, guttural shout from the floor at 3 a.m. when the world is completely caving in and absolutely nothing in your life feels safe.
And Paul pairs this desperate cry with the word huithesia, which translates to Roman legal adoption. In Paul's world, this wasn't just a nice sentiment. It was a fierce, legally binding reality. A father could actually disown a biological son, but under Roman law, an adopted son's position was completely irrevocable. The old life was legally obliterated. Old debts were permanently wiped out. A brand new name was given, and a full inheritance was granted. It was an act so absolute that a teenager like Octavian could be legally adopted in a will, inherit the name Caesar, and quite literally become master of the world.
Look at how this all builds into an incredible reality for us. Back in the ancient world, there was this very strict cultural boundary. A servant could live their entire life in a master's house, but they could never, ever use the household family words. Those were strictly reserved for the heirs. Paul's staggering announcement is that this fence has been legally torn down for you. You aren't some servant relying on your own performance. No, you are a legally adopted heir, and you've been given the family word.
The cost on Golgotha. But in adoption, this absolute? It comes with a cost. This story requires us to journey toward that final hill to fully understand the devastating price that was paid for your adoption.
I want you to look closely at that garden prayer again. Jesus prays, Abba, Father. Remove this cup from me, yet not what I will, but what you will. Notice he doesn't use the child's babble here. He uses the emphatic, respectful address of a fully grown son facing an unbearable duty. In total honesty and total surrender, he knows exactly what it's going to cost. And he chooses his father's will with his face right there in the dirt, bearing the absolute heaviest load this word will ever carry.
Then, the very next afternoon, on a hill outside the city walls, darkness covers the land. And Mark records Jesus' second prayer. Eloi, Eloi, lema sabachthani. My God, why have you forsaken me? Notice what is agonizingly absent here. The family word is gone. In his final hours, he is praying the 22nd Psalm, the ancient cry of the total outsider. Just let that silence hang in the air for a second. The intimate word he carried his entire life is missing. And here's the crucial point of this profound exchange. The only man in history who held the natural right to that intimate family word went to the far place and lost it. He prayed the orphan psalm so the Spirit could permanently pray the Son's word in you. The family word came down off the fence and was legally signed over to you. It was paid for by the one afternoon its rightful owner would not use it, all so that you would never ever have to be without it.
The word is yours. This brings us right out of the first century and directly into your life today. The word is yours. This ancient truth still breathes, and it completely changes exactly how we stand in the modern day.
Just imagine a 41-year-old man standing in a hospital corridor at 3 a.m. He's a grown man with a mortgage and graying hair, and he's terrified. The cold linoleum is under his feet, the rhythmic beeping of machines is echoing down the hall. He pulls out his phone, he calls home, and the very moment the line connects, he just folds. He just says, Dad. He isn't talking baby talk. He is reaching for the unbreakable, enduring vocabulary of deep belonging. A word that holds immense weight and total nearness all at the exact same time. That is Abba.
So, as I pass this story down to you today, hold fast to the totality of what you've been given. This is the emphatic, face-to-face word of grown sons. It holds closeness and honor in a single breath. It was placed in your mouth by an unbreakable act of legal adoption that simply cannot be undone. And it was secured by a devastating price paid on a dark afternoon so that the door could never be shut on you.
I want to leave you with a question to ponder as we close out our time by the fire. Look at your own life right now. Which half of this word do you need tonight? The intimate nearness of it or the immovable weight of it? Whatever dark corridor you find yourself in, my deepest hope is that this story empowers you to confidently pray the whole word forever. Keep learning, keep seeking, and I'll see you in our next story.